Hi, huge movie fanatic Nate coming back yet again for another solo winter-related movie review here in the wonderful Minnesota winter. I'm coming at you now to review a movie which I don't know if this review is going to get many views because no one's probably heard of this movie, called Invasion from Inner Earth. Now this is a Bill Rebane movie. Now I briefly knew Bill Rebane back in, basically I met him in early 2006. I had he sells like his movies on his little website, and I had ordered a movie of his, Rana, The Legend of Shadow Lake, which is the first Bill Rebane movie I ever saw. I'm going to do a review of that movie in the spring or summer, so watch out for my Rana, The Legend of Shadow Lake review. So I mailed him, the payment, and I had just made like a short film, but it's actually not a film, it's shot on video, but you call it a short film, the year before, or completed it the year before this movie I did. Along with my money to order his Rana, Legend of Shadow Lake, I sent a DVD of this short, and included with, obviously my name and phone number, when, to call me back to say how much they loved it. So then I was at my mom's, a couple, like 3 days later, or whatever. I must have mailed it early midweek, and I sleep in a lot, and I was at my mom's and I was sleeping in, and she woke me up, knocked on the door and woke me up, and it's like, the movie guy called, she said, the movie guy called, and I'm like, I instantly was just up. It was probably 10 a.m., which is early for me, and I was just instantly awake. And I'm like, what? Who? What? So, like, Bill Rebane called for me. So, literally, he called me 3 days after I mailed this, 3 or 4 days after I mailed it. And he said, he loved this short and all this and that. And so, within a week or whatever, I drove up to see him. And I don't know why. I can't remember. He was just really, he said he was really impressed with the short I had done. So I in retrospect, I don't know why I went up to see him, but it was cool. I'm glad I did, which was of course the very northernmost tip of Wisconsin. So it was a kind of an interesting, and this was at the dead of winter, like in March. So it was an interesting trip up there. So to make a long story short, I briefly knew the guy who made this movie, which was kind of cool to meet this guy who did this. At the time I had only seen Rana, The Legend of Shadow Lake, which I grew up with, which I will review in the spring or summer. So I just have to give that back story, which is really cool, that basically I briefly knew the guy who made this movie. So Invasion from Inner Earth, I think it's also known as They, as far as I know, is a movie that was, I think, made, gosh darn it, did he make, I want to say it was the early 70s, early to mid 70s. And he made it in Wisconsin. For a while there he had, like, I think this outfit in Wisconsin, I think it was called the Shooting Ranch. It was like one of the only independently, like, owned and operated, like, quote unquote studios, like, in the country. It was really cool. I mean, he really was doing some kind of, I don't know if he necessarily was doing cool stuff, but it was cool that he was making a go of it. We'll put it that way. And I think one of his most famous movies, which you're not going to even know what it is, was called Giant Spider Invasion, which actually starred the skipper from Gilligan's Island.
They came from another world to destroy the Earth. It was the Giant Spider Invasion.
So, he's done a fair amount of B like driving, the perfect, way to classify his movies would be just B movie, drive-in movies, kind of fair. And I rewatched, and since I met him, I tracked down some movies, which is of course, which includes this one, Invasion from Inner Earth, which I just rewatched. I saw it for the second time. I probably saw it for the first time then, and I just rewatched it recently within the last week. And I'm afraid, he's a well-meaning guy and everything like that, but I'm afraid this movie for me is a half of a star movie. It's very like it's like 90 minutes of like pretty much more or less nothing is what it boils down to, and it's a shame because it's not easy to make movies, and it's sure as shit not easy to make movies like in the winter, and that's one of the one of the only pluses the movie has got going for it is the beautiful Wisconsin winter scenery, which is very beautiful. The girl in it's really kind of cute, and she's another good thing about it. So the girl's really kind of cute, and then the beautiful winter scenery, Wisconsin, is really cute. Other than that, this movie's mostly lame, I'm afraid. The well-meaning Bill gave it his all, and more than a lot of people, more than you can say for a lot of people, but I'm afraid I can't give it any more than half of a star. It's basically about nothing. One of my kind of rules or guidelines for myself when I make movies and or shorts and all this kind of stuff is, as a no budget movie maker, I generally not try not to tackle a subject that I can't physically do, like don't, like I wouldn't like write the movie Star Wars or anything like Star Wars or Avatar or anything like that and try to do that with like $2,000, because it's not going to happen. And that's kind of what Bill does with Invasion from Inner Earth. It's kind of like a very, the idea is like really like ambitious, like these Martians have actually lived inside the planet all this time, and they come out, and if you can't, personally, this is my opinion, if you can't execute like a grand ambitious idea with any other way than having like a out of focus little tin UFO revolving with red light, he's perfectly free to do whatever he wants, and he did, and more power to him. But in my opinion, it's just kind of like, you've got all these. The movie begins with this big, like not so big, but presumably the streets of Wisconsin, where these smoke bombs that are just laying around the street are just smoking, and people are running, and some of them are smiling, and it's supposed to be like a chaotic, like end of the world time, and there's only a few people left on the planet, and it's just way too ambitious of a movie for like such a low budget. So unfortunately, the biggest special effect is the autofocus like pie tin UFO. It's lit by red light, and then there's a red light that's like a character, and it's just the end where it's like I had forgotten about that, and when I had just rewatched it last week, and it was like, they're like, this guy and girl are reduced to like Adam and Eve, and they're like 10 years old, and they got rags covering their fronts, and I guess the idea was kind of noble, and the idea was kind of cool, but maybe it wasn't, I don't know. His intent was good, it was a noble intent, but I'm afraid the execution just left you wanting more. So I think that'll end the review for Invasion from Inner Earth. It's 1/2 of a star. So just to be clear, just a half of a star. Not a whole lot to it. Obviously, I love the whole cabin aspect and the music, which is probably a lot of this music appears later on in his other movies, including Rana, the legend from Shadow Lake, the Legend of Shadow Lake. But the main tune, like that, I like that, and I don't know if they did that for the movie or if that's just like library music, you know, that they picked and chose out of. But that, I like that tune, you know, that's kind of a cool tune, and the cabin, the remote cabin aspect, and all this and that. Oh, before I end, there's one thing I like about the movie besides the girl and this winter scenery is this one guy. I'm afraid I don't know his name, but maybe I'll put it on the screen in red letters. The guy with the, I actually like him as a performer, and he's in a couple, I think, of Bill Urbane movies, or at least, I don't know. He's in this for sure, and he's also, he plays a big part, I think, in the Devonsville Terror as well, which was produced by Bill Urbane. But I like that guy.
The Martians were not interested in the surface of the Earth because through their advanced technology, they had made scouting probes, and they discovered that the interior of the Earth closely approximated their own atmosphere and was very compatible to them. And so, in the words of the old master, Jules Verne, a journey to the center of the Earth seemed about the only way out.
I think he actually kind of had a nice presence, that guy with the beard and all that stuff. And I think he's got glasses. And I don't know his name, but I think I probably have already put his name on the screen before. So, in closing, he was great. The girl's really cute, and the movie's a half of a star movie for me. Beautiful girl, beautiful winter scenery, and that's about it. Thank you very much for watching, and there.
Furry little forest creatures.
Will you knock it off?